Kyle here, back with another video from Leadership Development That Works, the channel that focuses on providing no-nonsense practical advice that's going to help you be a better leader. Today, I want to dig deep on how do you solicit actionable feedback as a leader. It's tricky, especially when we are talking about getting it from people that report directly to you. So I really want to dive in on that. And let's start first, though, with why you would want to do that. One of the main critical reasons you'd want to do that is because of blind spots. We all have them as human beings. These are things that others see in you that you don't recognize in yourself. Now, you can take assessments, and I would encourage you to do that. DISC, Strength Finders, there's a million of them out there. It's always a great idea when the opportunity presents itself, or if your company provides the ability to do that, take advantage of that. Because anytime you can increase your knowledge of yourself, what makes you tick, how you communicate and interact with others, that's great. And that's going to help you in your ability to lead other people. But it's not enough, especially when we're talking about blind spots. If you want to get to the bottom of blind spots, you're going to have to go out there and actively solicit feedback, including from people that report to you. The interesting thing about this is if I got 100 leaders in a room and we talked about this, and I talked about blind spots and the importance of getting feedback on yourself so you can better understand those blind spots, understand how to manage them, work on them, and be aware of them. I bet 98 of the leaders in that room would raise their hand and say, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I should be soliciting feedback on myself. You're right. But how many of them are actually doing it? I would argue a very small percentage. So you got to start there. If you're not actively soliciting feedback on yourself right now, why is that? Most of the time when I ask that question, people, if they're honest, will say, well, I'm afraid of what I might hear. I don't want to, bring critical upon me, invite that criticalness upon myself. I just don't want to deal with anything that's got to do with negativity or what I could be doing wrong. And I would say you got to look at that mindset. Because if you are holding back on actually soliciting feedback on yourself because of fear of what you might hear, what does that say about where you are on your journey as a leader today? Because if we're to think about it, a leader who is solid in who they are and confident in their ability to lead, they're going to lean into getting feedback on themselves because they're going to frame it as an opportunity to learn more and to improve and get better. So you got to really take a close look at that. And you got to take a close look at what is your mindset and the way you're framing this. A lot of times people frame feedback as a negative thing, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you're going into the conversation saying, I'm going to get actionable feedback on myself because I've heard that that's the right thing to do, but you otherwise are sort of dreading the conversation, you need to pause. And you need to say, what's the mindset I have around getting feedback on myself today? And what's the mindset I'd like to have going forward? And get real clear on that before you go into that conversation. Because if you're not, it's going to probably lead to a less than ideal outcome. So let's talk about how do you solicit actionable feedback, especially from those that report to you, because that's where it can get really tricky, right? First thing you got to do is you got to avoid the simple yes or no question. So don't ask a question like, do you have any feedback for me? You're going to get an easy no on that. I mean, why would somebody, you're not really asking for anything meaningful there, and you're giving them a very easy out. So a lot of times a leader will ask a question like that so they can check the box and say, oh, well, I solicited feedback on myself, when in reality, we're not getting anything that's meaningful there. So here are a couple of examples or questions that you could use, or things that spark you to think about really good questions you could ask? What's one thing I could do to better support you? What could I do or stop doing that would make it easier for you to work with me? What's one thing I could start doing that would boost morale for the team or improve morale on the team? If this person is involved in a project that you're leading, and after you've had a meeting where you've led that project, ask them for feedback on that. What's one thing I did in the meeting that you felt was effective and went well? And what's one thing that I could do better the next time we have a meeting on this project to help us continue to be successful and move forward in this? See, it's very targeted, it's very specific, and you need to think that through. So you think through who you're going to get the feedback from and how you are going to solicit it, because it has to be targeted. Otherwise, you can fall in that trap of, like you ask your teenager, how was school today? Fine, right? You're not really getting anything you can work with there. So avoid that trap. Be real intentional and specific about what you're asking for in terms of feedback. And then once you've asked that question, zip it, right? You're not the next one to talk. And it's really critical how you handle that moment, right? Especially if they're willing to take the risk to give you the feedback. You got to listen to understand. Don't listen to respond or defend or explain. Listen to understand. I have a whole other video on my channel that really digs deep on how do you effectively receive feedback as a leader. It's so critical because how you handle that when somebody's taking the risk to give you feedback is going to have direct implications for the relationship you have with that person. It's also going to have implications for the communication dynamic for the team as a whole, because you're setting an example there. So I would really encourage you to look at that video when you're done with this one, because I think it's a really great companion piece to this video and really addresses that other half of the equation. So having feedback as a part of what your team does is so important, and making it a safe environment for that is critical. And part of that is you as a leader soliciting feedback and handling that feedback you receive in an effective way. So you want to make sure you challenge and look at your mindset around this issue. You want to be real intentional about how you want to go about it and the kind of questions you want to ask so you can make sure you're getting actionable feedback. And you want to be very, very careful and smart about how you actually receive the feedback once somebody takes that risk to give it to you. So I want you to take a look at all of those things, and I would encourage you, as you come out of this video, is to jot down a couple of notes on this. Where are some opportunities where I could get feedback, and how do I want to go about it? If you find value in this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Helps get this information out to more people. And as I said, I have a companion video on the process of actually meaningfully, effectively receiving the feedback once somebody takes that risk to give it to you. Thank you for your time.